Right, we'll try covering maximum elements of demography till around 5:30. Right? Then we'll take a 10-minute break. Then we'll finish poverty. Okay. Now, if we can finish poverty today, tomorrow we'll try finishing most of your vulnerable sections. Now, once we are done with vulnerable sections, I think major chunk is done. We'll be left with education, health, social sector. Then I can club up education, health, social sector with your elements of governance.
Yes.
So that governance part, I think if we can spend till 7 o'clock today or 6:30, 6:45, then we can get half day for governance. Okay. Okay. మా క్లాస్లో ఉన్నా ఇప్పుడే వచ్చాను సరే ఓకే ఓకే సో వాట్ ఈస్ డెమోగ్రఫీ as such?
Age group.
Age group.
Adi working population.
Population structure.
Population structure, age group. Then what is demography?
Characteristics of the population.
Characteristics of the population, right?
Demography.
More precise. True.
Study.
Any other understanding of demography? Any other understanding of demography? When you look at the concept of demography, it is basically a composite word. It's a composite word, demos meaning people. Graphy is a statistical study. Graphy is a statistical study. So if you have to define demography, it's a statistical study of the composition of population. It is a statistical study of the composition of population. Now when you look at this particular demography or the statistical study of the composition of population, now you basically need to understand different characteristics of this particular population. Now if you want to understand characteristics of this population, you basically need to have an estimate of age. Yes, you basically need to have an estimate of the sex or gender, the age, the estimate of birth and death rates, yes. Now these three characteristics of age, sex and birth and death rate, don't you think these form the basic elements of your demography? Yes, because when you look at your census, we basically classify into 0 to 15 years, 15 to 59 or 64, then greater than 65. And as per your 2011 census, this is around 26%, this is around 62%, and this is whatever is rest, 88, this is 12%. Now we basically talk about sex, male or female, and third gender. Now as per 2011 census, we have seen the third gender is around 4.88 lakh people. We'll see about more of this when we are discussing about transgenders as part of your vulnerable sections. Then when you talk about your birth rate and death rate, basically your birth rate or death rate, we look in different terms with respect to your infant mortality rate. We basically talk about maternal mortality rate. We basically talk about under 5 mortality rate. We basically talk about neonatal mortality rate. Now all these elements of mortality and all these elements of natality, they basically indicate the extent of birth or death rates. Now in any kind of demography, you will have two phenomena. One is natality and the other one is mortality. Natality is that kind of phenomena, or it is that kind of concept which basically deals with the birth of a particular individual. Mortality deals with the death of a particular individual. Now, with such basic components of your demography, now if you want to enumerate the total population, you basically need to balance the inputs and outputs, or you basically need to balance the additions and deletions. Now, when you talk about the total population, the addition is in the form of natality. The deletion is in the form of mortality. Yes. This is what is called as your natural birth rate. This is what is called as your natural death rate. And this is what is called as natural population growth rate. Your natural population growth rate is nothing but the growth rate or the difference in the growth rate of your natality vis-a-vis your mortality. Now, but when you look at a particular region, the population growth rate, for instance, if you take India, we have estimated the population growth rate at 17.7% per decade, and per annum it is around 1.2%. Now, when you estimate the total population of a particular region, please remember it is not only with respect to the birth and death, but you have other external elements. One such external element is migration. And this migration can be either immigration, and this migration can be either immigration, immigration and immigration.
So what is it, 17.7?
That is the decadal growth rate, population growth rate. Now, when you are considering the total population of a particular region, you basically need to consider not only natality and mortality, but you are supposed to also consider the immigration and immigration. Whatever immigration, that is your plus, natality is plus, mortality is minus, this immigration is minus. And whatever resultant you are getting is nothing but your total population. Right? Now, in order to understand this dynamics of total population, it is very certain that you are supposed to understand the natality, it is very certain that you are supposed to understand mortality, your immigration. And we have seen what are the push factors and what are the pull factors when it comes to the migration as a phenomenon. Right? Now, those similar factors only include your immigration as well as immigration. Now, in order to get a detailed analysis of this composition of your population or the composition of a particular region, you basically need to study the demography in the form of demographic pyramids. You basically need to talk about demographic pyramids. You basically need to talk about demographic pyramids. Now, when you talk about your demographic pyramids or population pyramids, they basically indicate the age, they indicate the sex, and they point out at the trends of the changing composition of the population in a particular region. Now, suppose there are three types of such pyramids. Now, in your environment and ecology, you would have heard about something called as ecological pyramids, your biodiversity pyramids or biomass pyramids, your numerous or number pyramids or energy pyramids. And in that, you would study that energy pyramids are always upright. But whereas your biomass and number pyramids can be inverted or can be upright. Now, when you look at the type of pyramids or demographic pyramids, one is this type. The other one is an inverted pyramid. The other one is bell-shaped pyramid. Basically, these are three different types of demographic pyramids. Now, when you look at this particular pyramid, it shows that it's an young population. Why is it an young population? Basically, when you look at this base of it, it shows that younger population or the population at birth is high. But when you look at the proportion of aging population, it is low. That means the population that is present in this, or the population that is indicated with respect to this demographic pyramid, is young. Now, when a particular region is having a young population like India, our mean age is 29 years. We are supposed to be one of the youngest nations of the world. Now, when you are having such a young population, one thing it would indicate is something called as dependency ratio. You need to basically understand and evaluate the dependency ratio. Now, what do you basically mean by dependency ratio? Is simple ratio. The people from 0 to 14 plus greater than 65 by 15 to 65. That means that proportion of population which is dependent on the working population or working age population. It might be your children or it might be your old age people. Now, when you look at this, with respect to this section, you would have a lower component. But when it comes to this section, it is a higher component. Yes. That means when a particular country is going to have this kind of trend, it is very certain that in future it is going to be aging population. Yes. Now, in future it is going to be aging population. That means the social security mechanism of this particular type of country or the country that is indicating this type of pyramid has to be extremely strong. Now, this pyramid basically indicates to the policies or the policy makers for a strong social security mechanism. For a strong social security mechanism in order to safeguard the future trends of aging. Right? Now, apart from social security mechanism, you also need to ensure that the policies create necessary physical and human capital. Because most of them are young. They are from 0 to 14. Now, in order to reap the demographic productivity or in order to reap the productivity of an individual or economic potential of an individual, we basically need to undertake certain social security mechanisms in the form of health, in the form of education, in the form of sanitation, in the form of basic needs. Yes. Now, that is the basic policy directive what this kind of pyramids give to the policy makers. Is this clear? Is this clear? Now, when you talk about the second type of pyramid, we find that very low population of young people and it's an aging population. And classic example for this is Japan.
Graying countries.
Yes, graying countries. Japan. Now, when you look at this particular trend, it basically shows that there is high dependency ratios. Now, there is high dependency ratios. That means this particular region or this particular country is going to be in need of workforce. Now, don't you think in order to balance this impact of policy or impact of public or impact of population growth in one region and corresponding or contrary and in the other region, don't you think this will indicate a kind of importing workforce nature? Because there is absence of workforce, there is aging population. Whatever kind of population that is available here with respect to your working population can see a market here. Yes? Yes or no? That is the reason why your Indian policy directives are working for creating India as a global skill capital. Why? Global skill capital or global labor force provider, the fundamental reason is we have a very young population. The mean age is 29 years. Now, when the mean age is 29 years, now it is very certain that the regions like South America, the regions like Europe, the regions like Japan or East Asia, they are aging population. Now, when you talk about the economic debate between India and China, the only positive we have with respect to China is we have a very young population. The mean age of India is 29, the mean age of China is 42. So the policy makers of India are one day dreaming that we'll certainly catch up China because we have an advantage of very low mean age. We have an advantage of having younger population. Now, whatever potential this presence of younger population in a particular region provides is what is called as your demographic dividend. Demographic dividend is a kind of potential that is provided to a particular country because of a particular set of composition of a demography. Now, that set of composition of a demography is young in this case. Now, if it is young and if it is working population of, if there is abundance of working population, then it is very certain that we are going to reap certain dividends. That is why it is called as demographic dividend. Now, the second initiative of Skill India is not only turning India into global skill capital, but also leveraging upon demographic dividend. Now, unless and until we start training our young population, this demographic dividend is going to turn into demographic disaster. And one of the consequences of this transformation of demographic dividend into demographic disasters, we'll see when we are studying children, is what is called as child delinquencies. And another manifestation or illustration with respect to changing of demographic dividend to demographic disaster is increasing crime rates, increasing unemployment. Yes? Now, all these factors or all these poor socio-economic indicators of a particular region or of a particular country is mainly resultant of demographic disaster. Now, when we are not able to reap the demographic dividend of India with respect to the younger population, then it is very certain that it is going to turn into a disaster. So, in order to arrest this process of shifting from demographic dividend to demographic disaster, we need Skill India. We need Startup India. We need Stand Up India. We need Make in India. Right? Now, the third type, a bell-shaped curve or a bell-shaped pyramid. This is more of a balanced pyramid because when you look at the birth rate, it is also less, or the younger population is also less. Now, when you look at the death rate, it is also less. But when you look at the working age population, it has high working age population. That means when you look at the dependency ratio of all these three, the dependency ratio of this is going to be very less. Now remember, there is a correlation between your dependency and your social security mechanisms. When there is high dependency ratio, it is very certain that you are supposed to ensure a robust social security mechanism. Now, unless and until you ensure a robust social security mechanism, you cannot ensure the welfare of these people. Right? Now, in order to take care of these particular kind of regions, or in order to look into the welfare of these particular regions, there is an economic concept that which is coming up called as care economy. Care economy. Care economy was one of the themes of your last year budgets. Care economy, care society.
So, what was the term which we gave for this upright pyramid, wherein we are transporting our skilled professionals to other countries? The skill capital.
Skill capital, global skill capital. Is this clear? This is all about demographic pyramids.
Again, coming back to dependency ratio, Is there any order of dependency ratio with these given three curves? I mean,
Now suppose you take,
least.
this is highest,
Dependency will be highest.
least, sorry.
Least, yeah.
This will be highest,
No.
this will be in middle. So we have seen certain keywords like demographic pyramids, demographic dividend, demographic disaster, and dependency ratio. Now from here, you basically need to understand what was the Indian kind of demographic growth. How has India progressed with respect to the parameters or the composition of demography? Was it all high in the starting? Was it all low in the starting? Now, in order to determine the demographic transition of India or transition with respect to the composition of Indian population, we talk about something called as demographic transition theory. We talk about something called as demographic transition theory. This demographic transition theory was given by O. Norton Steen. This demographic transition theory was given by O. Norton Steen. Now, when you look at the Indian case of demographic transition, it was basically divided into 4 stages. Okay. Now this is with respect to your birth rate, this is with respect to the death rate, and this is with respect to the population growth rate. Now this is your stage 1, stage 2, stage 3 and stage 4. Okay. Now when you look at this demographic transition theory with respect to India, we have 4 different stages. Now when you observe the general trend of population growth, this is basically during year 1901 to this is 21, then 51, then 81, say 2011. Right? Now when you talk about the 51 to 81, we call it as the era of population explosion. We have called it as the era of population explosion. And during year 1901 to 21, we have seen the era of population stagnation. Yes. And 24, the 1924 was considered as the year of population divide because there was a negative growth rate. Yes. Year 1924 was considered as a year of population divide because there was negative growth rate. Now when you look at your 2011 census and when you look at the population growth rate of Nagaland, the population growth rate of Nagaland was minus 0.7. That means Nagaland is also going through a phase of decelerating population growth rate. So when you look at these trends and when you start understanding what each of this phase indicates or what are the reasons behind this such a trend with respect to each of this phase, now you find that in first phase your birth rate is equal to or is almost equivalent to your death rate. Now what is the reason?
Healthcare.
One is healthcare, weak healthcare. Now as a consequence of weak healthcare, you have high infant mortality rate, high maternal mortality rate or greater levels of under 5 mortality rate. Now in order to compensate this mortality rate, it is very certain that they are going for repeated conceptions. or repeated pregnancy periods or pregnancy cycles? Now when they are going for repeated pregnancy cycles, it is that you are going to have a birth rate almost equivalent to your death rate. Now basically your birth rate was becoming a compensatory mechanism for your death rate. Apart from this, you also had a phenomenon of early marriages. Early marriages, child marriages, right? Although your age of consent bill 1891 was passed, although your Sharda Act in 1927 was passed, but still you had a prevalence of child marriages. Now, one of the fundamental issues with respect to child marriage is there is something called as fertility and fecundity. When you're talking about demography, it is all about fertility and fecundity. Now, fecundity basically talks about the maximum potential of an individual to give birth to a live individual. Now, that means in a particular life period or lifetime, the fecundity of a female, say, can be 8 children, or 10 children, or 12 children, or the maximum number of live individuals what a woman can give birth to is what is called as fecundity, or the maximum potential. Now when you talk about fertility, it is the actual potential, or it is to the actual number of people or live birth an individual woman is giving birth to. Now for example, fecundity for a woman is say 18 children, but in her lifetime she is only able to give birth to 10 children. Here 18 is fecundity but 10 is fertility. Now when you find this phenomenon of early marriages, don't you think this period of fertility is going to go up? That means she has greater potential to realize the maximum impact or maximum potential of giving birth to a live individual. Yes. That is the reason why your early marriages become one of the reasons. Then we had certain religious concerns.
Sir, I have a doubt with the population group, right? Why is it just increasing? It will stagnate at that point, right, sir?
Which point?
In stage 4, then the population
Yeah, it is
growth-
stagnated almost.
Yeah, when it stagnates, it should be coming down, right?
Stagnant. Saturated curve.
So is that population or population growth rate?
Population growth
I
rate.
mean, growth.
Population is increasing, rate is stagnating.
It is stagnating.
The rate will be high.
Population
The population has already exploded, right? So
Right? So the third issue is with respect to the religious concerns. Now where conceiving a child is considered as a gift of God. Okay, that is one religious concern, but when you look at the communities like Islam, where they find pregnancy as a mode of getting rid of the tag of majority or minority in fact. Because pregnancy as a tool, they try to realize or they try to cover the gap between the majority and the minority status. Right? Then, with respect to awareness. So, religious concerns, awareness, early marriages and health concerns. Right? Now when you talk about your phase 2, what is happening? The birth rate is slightly declining, but comparatively you find a greater decline in your death rate. That means your post 21, your medical facilities started to improve. Your transportation facilities started to improve. Your medical facilities or your awareness or your transportation facilities started to improve. Or can I say there is a comparatively decline of social evils? Comparative decline of your social evils?
What is it? Fourth
Awareness. Awareness. Awareness about population control mechanisms. There is no awareness. No awareness.
If at all there is no awareness, then how can both can be balanced? Like they know there is high death rate because of which there should be an increased birth rate. Right?
Yeah, that's why they're balancing.
So they are aware of.
If they're aware, then this birth rate would have been low. They're not aware. They're seeing the pregnancy as a matter of compensatory mechanism. ఇంతమంది చచ్చిపోతున్నారు, so we'll produce more. Let them die, we'll produce more. We have that potential. Right? Right? Then what about your birth rate? Comparatively lesser, but when you compare the extent of decline in your death rate, it is on a slower pace. The reason again same. Most of these reasons again carry forward with respect to your birth rate. And one more thing you can add with respect to birth rate is you can add tropical climate. When you look at the tropical climates, the fertility levels of women are high. Or the leisure for coitus that is available is more comparatively in tropical periods. Yes. Whole of the day you can work. The nights you have leisure period in tropical. But when you talk about temperates, they have certain climatic constraints. Now when you look at the third phase, the death rate declined very drastically because post-independence and till year 81, I think the advent of technology with respect to your population was on higher levels with respect to your contraceptives, with respect to your population control. Sorry, that is regarding birth rate. I'm talking about death rate. At least your medical technology started to evolve. Now with the greater evolution of medical technology, don't you think the death rate is certainly going to reduce? Yes, because any kind of medical exigency or the extent of efficiency in the medical systems basically depend on the extent of technology usage. Yes. Now when you talk about the birth rate trends, now although it is declining, but when you look at the gap between both, don't you think it is widened? Very much. It has widened. Now because of this widened gap, don't you think there is a kind of population explosion that is happening? High birth rates, but low death rates. That is why the phase of 1951 to 81 is called as era of population explosion. It's called as the era of population explosion. Now, in spite of your 1951 marking the year of family planning, or they started bringing in the concepts of family planning from 1951. Then year 1970, your first family planning came up. Year 1963 or 1969, the Department of Family Planning was introduced. During your emergency, there were greater incidents of forced contraceptive or your forced vasectomy and tubectomy surgeries. Now, in spite of that, we had higher levels of birth rate. Right? On later dates, it got normalized because when you look at the National Population Policy 2000, you would find that they not only emphasized on the contraceptive mode of understanding or contraceptive mode of controlling population, but they had emphasized on something called as awareness generation campaigns. Because change has to begin from within. Now, you cannot take your policies till the bedroom of the individual, can you? If you can take also, can you enforce the policies in the bedroom? No. It is their freedom, their liberty. Now, in order to change that instance or in order to penetrate that policies into the implementation in the bedrooms of the houses, they had gone for shift from contraceptive kind of family planning to awareness generation campaigns kind of family planning. Now they started getting greater levels of population planning or awareness generation with respect to the advantages of having a less number of children, with respect to advantages of marrying on a later age, fixing a marriageable age. They started to emphasize a greater level on the extent of literacy of women or female education. Now, because of all this, the fundamental shift from year 81 or the era of population explosion to normal 2011 or normalization of this birth rate was basically because of awareness generation and female education. The emphasis on female education. Now, automatically your death rate is normalized because of your technology. Your satellite technology, your space applications, your nanotechnology, right? Your telecommunications.
How did space technology?
Yes.
Okay.
What is your telemedicine, e-health, all this? Space
Disaster
technology.
management.
Space technology. Right? Now, because of the advent of technology, it is very certain that the disease incidence and the disease burden is going to reduce. Is this clear? Now, I think from this it is very clear what are the factors impacting your population. What are the factors that impacts your population? That can be one standalone question. What are the factors impacting your population? One, divide it into social, political, economic, environmental or climatic. Now, when you talk about social, it is your religion or religious beliefs, religious practices. It is about marriageable age. It is about marriageable age. It is about nature of family. Now, if you have a joint family, the scope for privacy is less. Yes or no? When you have a private or when you have a nuclear family, the greater chances or greater degree of privacy. Now, here with respect to privacy, you need to remember that in joint family, the head of the family can impose number of children that are to be given birth by that particular female. Now, if some changes or some tickling happens with respect to number, that head gets angry and say, you're unfit, get lost. Most of the movies you see, old movies. But when you talk about the nuclearization of family, one of the advantages is the privacy with respect to women bodily rights are going to increase. They are going to be more empowered. Now, they have their own reproductive rights, they have their own the awareness about their reproductive rights, and they have their own choice of making a decision how many children they are supposed to give birth to. Now, when you talk about the concept of marital rape, that is a serious social evil that is still persisting. Now, that is a serious social evil which is being given a blind eye. Most of the people don't know what is marital rape. Now, they say marital rape is an ironical term that you are giving. It's a misnomer. We are married, and when we have a sexual activity, how can you call it a rape? Now, that Fuddu fellow does not understand, my dear. If you are exercising the sexual rights, it basically demands an element of consent. Yes. Now, unless and until you have a consent, you don't have any right over the body of female. Yes. Now, although in your IPC, in your civil codes, you have your norms against your marital rape, but they are hardly exercised. Now, I think in the year 2018, there was a remark judgment on marital rape. I think if the wife is above 16 years, then it is not, I don't remember, please refer it. I should not wrongly state that particular judgment, but please refer this judgment in the year 2018 that was given by Supreme Court. No, Supreme Court only. With respect to a Rajasthani girl who was 16-year-old, if I'm not wrong. I remember the context, but I don't remember the exact statement.
15, I think.
15, how is she even married? I mean,
16, something, yeah, some issue happened there, and that was a very interesting judgment. I'm not able to recollect the exact statements. So that maybe if I get time, I'll refer it and tell you tomorrow what is the thing there. Okay. That was a kind of shocking judgment that was given actually. I mean, that was centered around this marital rape. Okay. So nature of family, it is joint family or nuclear family. Now when you talk about political, it is all about the kind of policy directives. And in one phase you have seen that if you have more than 2 children, you become ineligible to contest your local elections. For example, states like Rajasthan, for example, states like Haryana, basically they have seen here also. We had that reason, but now we don't have that. Basically, it was seen as a measure of population control. Forcefully imposing or incentivizing the population control. That is with respect to the policies. Now when you talk about the economy, basically, if you have a greater standards of living, now there are 2 instances here. One, there can be large population, there can be small population. Now when you talk about a Marwadi family, they are rich economically, but when you look at the population size or when you look at their sibling size, it is minimum 4. Why? Because they perceive that children are a kind of division of labor, or they perceive that they act as a hands in their particular work, their family business. Now more children, you have more hands for free of cost. Yes. Business strategies. Right? Now when you talk about this smaller family, it is most of your elite class, where they have 1 child or 2 at max. Now one fear with respect to having 1 or 2 children here is, or not more is, if both of the members are working, then they'll not have a supporting system in order to take care of the child they are giving birth to. That is one. The second thing, with the advent of urbanization, with the advent of industrialization, what you basically see that they become extra cautious about standards of living. Because you find employment as a pull factor for migration. Now when you are finding a pull factor for migration, that is your employment, where your rural population, which is educated, is coming to urban areas. Now in order to sustain in urban areas, don't you think you need money? Now for you to make your child study in Hyderabad, you need at least 1 lakh for first standard. Yes. And there are some schools which take or which charge 9 lakhs per annum for first standard. Yes. Oak Ridge. It charges you 9 lakhs. I don't understand what they teach you. If you are charging 9 lakhs, I think diamond studded board, some pearl made chalk piece, still they cannot exhaust whatever 9 lakhs they have taken. I don't understand what they do. Horse riding, what for? He has to ride a pony then, not an horse. Huh?
Horse riding. Yes. 2500.
So basically this, as a fear of increased expenses, they go for smaller families, right? Now what is your environmental? I said it is tropical climate, and the other one is, it is with respect to the nature of food. greater the protein levels, lesser the fertility rates. Greater the protein levels, lesser the fertility rates. Because it is seen that the greater amounts of protein consumption would lead to lower secretions of estrogens because of the increased activity of liver. With greater protein, your liver activity or your lipofunctioning is extremely high. Because of higher lipofunctioning in the female body, they will have lesser secretions of estrogen. Now, when you have lesser secretions of estrogen, automatically the consequence is smaller population. Right? These are different factors affecting your population. Okay, I think you got around 7 to 8 points. More than sufficient. Now, the next aspect with respect to demography that you are supposed to understand, you are supposed to understand is population control. Population control mechanisms. Population control mechanisms. Tell me some population control mechanisms.
Awareness generation, concept,
One is female education.
increasing
Female education. Then
increasing age of marriage.
awareness generation, forced contraception. What?
Already government is planning.
Huh? Forced contraceptions.
Forced
No. Awareness generations. Female education, awareness generation.
increased marital
Marriageable age.
government.
Marriageable age, now they are trying to make it to 21. And for guy, it is going to be 25.
Increasing the cost of education.
Why we cannot wait till 25? Why are you so shocked?
Sir, for both
Both
No.
21 or no?
Previously, it was 18 and 21. Now they are talking about 21, 25.
Huh? 20?
1 and 25.
25.
Not boy 25.
Marriageable age. No issues. It is not enforceable, no? So it's up to you. Huh? What other population control mechanisms?
Government policies.
Sir, user
Policies.
contraceptives.
Policies. Policies. So female education, awareness generation, marriageable age, policies.
Raising the cost of growing a child.
Incentivizing.
Maybe, I mean, indirectly we have more education to be done, more healthcare, so
That is too narcissist, no?
that is indirectly happening in terms of policies.
We basically, policies in the sense, we basically incentivize the population control mechanism or the discipline that is followed with respect to the number of children. Now, when you go back and look at your 15th Finance Commission criteria, there was a lot of hue and cry with respect to your southern states. Because when you look at one of the criteria your 15th Finance Commission considered was your census of 2011. And all of your southern states suddenly rose in high voice saying, Arey Babu, we are very disciplined. Now, when we look at the fertility rates or the total fertility rate of southern states, it's around 2.3. But when you look at the average fertility rate of northern belt, it is around 3.8. That means here we have an individual producing around 2.3 children, but there 3.84. Now when you look at the population control mechanisms or the population control discipline, that is more in your southern states. Now all of the claims or the allegations of the southern states were, we are being penalized for being more disciplined, my dear. Please do something about this. Then After this claiming, the terms of reference with respect to your 15th Finance Commission has changed. The terms of reference with respect to your 15th Finance Commission as a counter narrative or as a balancing element for your census of 2011, they have gone for demographic performance. Where your demographic performance was considered as proportion of 12.5%, whereas your census 2011 was 15%. This 12.5%, they said, whoever has maintained a total fertility rate at a nominal range, you are being incentivized. Right? The fundamental issue was southern states were more disciplined with respect to population control, or they had a greater incentivization or greater levels of implementation of population control mechanisms. Is this clear? Is this clear?
And also, sir, from one family, if 4 kids are being joined in a school, one kid will be get free from fees, right? మేము అంతే ముగ్గురం ఉన్న మా తమ్ముడికి ఫ్రీ స్కూల్ మొత్తం.
అన్ని స్కూల్
ఇట్ షుడ్ బి చేంజ్, ఎందుకంటే దాని వల్లనే ఇంకా వాళ్ళు లైట్ తీసుకుంటున్నారు. ఫస్ట్ స్కూల్ ఫీజ్ భయపడి
It should be opposite, other way around, but it's
Okay.
other way around.
Two girl children, one boy child or something. Meta-son preference. Your economic survey 2018 talks about meta-son preference.
What's that, sir?
Meta-son preference.
Okay.
Meta-son.
Meta-son. We'll discuss what is meta-son when we are talking about women issues. Don't worry, it's not a bad concept. I'm just naming this thing. Meta-son basically means that there has to be at least one boy in the family. Now, when they have taken the survey, your economic survey 2018, they state that it happened to be the last sibling or the last child happens to be a boy. And major, how many are girls are in the front. That's a kind of patriarchal attitude that is pointed out by your economic survey 2018. Okay, we'll discuss when we are discussing about women and the issues of women and patriarchy as an issue. We'll state one of the issues is meta-son preference. Now, most of the families you find this very commonly, meta-son preference. Now, for example, you observe one family which is going on bike, small chotu, you will find 2 girls and 1 boy sitting on the tank. Yes? Girls will be sitting on mother's lap, whatever, or boy will be sitting on the tank. It's a very common sight, very common sight. Very common sight. It is all about the inherent and the hidden concept of the prevalence of patriarchy. Now, society is like this. You cannot do anything. Right? Now, you basically talk about women empowerment. Now, women empowerment can be seen only when you tackle the issues of patriarchy. And whatever kinds of measures you take for women empowerment can only be complete if you tackle patriarchy as an issue. And patriarchy as an issue can only be tackled by bringing a change in the individual. By bringing a change in the individual. Now, let me share one experience with you people. I mean, on a lighter note. General observations in the society of youthful age, like around teens, 18, 19, 20, you find that a bunch of 5-6 guys will be stalking a girl who is walking on the road. Yes? Yes or no? Now, that particular bunch will not understand what is the emotional status or what is the emotional turmoil that particular individual girl is undergoing. General trends, general observations. In movies also they highlight bus stands, all this. Now, I understood this particular emotional status when I was in a women university. When I went to give a guest lecture in a women university, I took a break. And happened to go to the canteen. Believe me, trust me, that day I realized, my dear, what is the status of A girl who is walking alone, just imagine at 7 o'clock or 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the evening, and a bunch of 10 guys are just staring at her, which is wrong, absolutely wrong. Now I just went for a break, went to the canteen. Forget about walking the lane which is heading towards canteen. When I entered the canteen, trust me, there were around 120, 130 girls in the canteen, only one guy. That day I realized how intimidating that kind of situation is for a girl. Now when you look at guys, you are muscularly very strong. You physically, you have certain strength comparatively, a greater degree than a girl or a female. Now when you see a person like me, who is so hatta katta, now he is only feeling intimidated when he is entering a coffee shop or when he is entering a canteen in a very safe environment where you have 10 to 20 CCTV cameras, which is women university. Now just look at the sad plight of that girl who is walking on road. Now the fundamental reason is what? It's all about the attitude of patriarchy. It is all about the attitude of patriarchy. Now when you find, or in few minutes we'll discuss what are the trends with respect to the total fertility rate in different parts of India, we'll find that there are lesser comparatively fertility rates in northeastern states. Or you have a better state of tribal women compared to normal hinterland women. The fundamental reason is they have a balancing attitude of matriarchy and patriarchy. And when you look at your tribal societies, they are mostly egalitarian in nature. Egalitarian in nature in the sense, if an household work is being done by women, the occupational work will be done by the male. Now if a male candidate of that particular family is taking a cow for grazing, then the milking activity is done by the female. There is an equal division of labor. And when you talk about the tribal societies, they are mostly egalitarian in nature. That is the reason why when you look at the tribal women status, when compared to the hinterland women status, they are comparatively in a better position. A similar case with respect to your northeast. The fundamental reason behind the northeastern states' fertility rates being very low compared to your northern states is there are more matriarchal societies. For example, your Khasis, Garos, all these are matriarchal societies. Right? Now when you look at the trends, when you look at the trends, in the southern belt, we have a total fertility rate of a range of around 2.3 on an average. But when you take states like AP, states like Kerala, there is around 1.8, the total fertility rate. Now when you take states like this northern belt, it is around 3.8 to 4 even. Now when you talk about your northeastern states, it is around 2.8 to 3.2. Now this is the basic variation or distribution of your total fertility rate. Now don't you think this kind of distribution with respect to your total fertility rate is going to give you an account of the levels of the implementation of your population control mechanisms? Now don't you think it gives an account that your southern states are more meticulous in implementing your population control mechanisms when you compare it to your northern as well as your northeastern? Now when you look at the variation with respect to this implementation or enforcement of population control mechanisms, we find that one fundamental reason why your southern states are performing very well is literacy. The most of the literacy or literate states are your southern states. Now when you look at, or when you start comparing the human development indices of your southern states, they are extremely very high. When you talk about your human development index, it is about your health, education and life expectancy. They are high here. That means the medical facilities, the health facilities, or the accessibility, availability and affordability of health and education is comparatively more. But when you talk about your North Indian states, the socio-economic conditions are extremely poor. The socio-economic conditions are extremely poor, and the socio-economic conditions of this particular region are mostly determined by your requirement for labor. Requirement for labor. Just give me a second.
Sir, from this thing, sir. From this thing.
అంత ఎక్స్ప్రెషన్ ఇస్తాం.
ఏంటో అన్న నాకు తెలుసు కదా మళ్ళీ మాట్లాడుతున్నాను.
Right? So basically, this particular region of India is driven or determined on the basis of quantum or the magnitude of labor availability. That's why they go for higher levels of total fertility. That is one. Socio-economic conditions. 3, when you talk about the fundamental rights or the human rights in the context of women, there is a sad state there. Now when you look at the NCRB, National Crime Record Bureau report with respect to crime against women, it is mostly prevalent in these regions. It is mostly prevalent in these regions. Now when we are talking about women issues, we'll talk about something called as unwanted girls. We'll talk about unwanted girls as an issue when we are talking about women. We'll see what is unwanted girls concept. That is mostly prevalent in these regions. Now when you look at states like Rajasthan, your Haryana, they are extremely patriarchic. They are extremely patriarchic. They are extremely patriarchic. Now, if you are appearing in your interview board as a member or as a part of your, if you are from Rajasthan or Haryana, take it for granted one question is from patriarchy. One question is from patriarchy. Take it for granted. Right? Now, when you talk about this, I said comparatively a better position with respect to your northern states. The fundamental reason behind this is they are matriarchal and they are mostly tribal societies. They are matriarchal and mostly tribal societies. That means when they have a tribal composition with respect to your northeastern states, they are a comparatively an egalitarian society. Comparatively an egalitarian society. Is this clear?
Sir, any trends in particular religion?
No.
Like people will be bored. Like in few interviews which I have seen, there are specific questions regarding the community questions.
If that individual is from that community, then they'll ask. If an individual who is from Islam, then they can ask you the trends. Not from Hindu candidate, but Islam or Buddhist candidate or Jain or a Christian, I don't think they'll ask, but Islamic mostly, if they want to ask a question on demography and population trends, then they would choose Islam candidate, but which is not hurting in nature. Mostly it will be subjective in nature.
So how does being tribal, the tribal characteristic affect the fertility rate?
Basically, it's egalitarian. Egalitarian.
Polyamory also.
Polyandry is also present. Polyandry is as a phenomena, but that will not have greater impact on. In fact, polyandry leads to greater fertility rates.
But
So
she
what is
having
polyandry?
Multiple husbands. Draupadi. Draupadi is an example for polyandry.
material, more material.
Okay.
necessities.
Is this clear? Is this clear? I think this is all about demography. I think I have covered it extensively. There is no other thing they can ask from this demography. One, we have seen the Indian trends. We have seen the reasons for population control mechanisms. We have seen the trends in total fertility rate. And we have seen certain basic terminology, demographic dividend, demographic disaster, dependency rate, all this. Right? Now we'll take a 10-minute break again. Right?
So can you repeat it towards fertility and
Fecundity.
fecundity?
We'll take a 10-minute break and assemble back and try to finish poverty. In poverty, we'll basically deal the concept of poverty. We'll see what is the difference between, I think in your economy, were you all dealt with absolute and relative poverty?
Yes, sir, we were mentioned it passing.
But they did not differentiate.
Yes.
They were differentiated.
They give definitions.
Poverty depth, poverty gap ratio, head count ratio, all this. No?
They have only given definition.
Okay. Okay. Then we'll see. No issues. We'll cover even the economic aspect, not an issue. Poverty, factors of poverty, consequences of poverty, and we'll examine poverty as a multi-dimensional issue. Because when you look at poverty, we basically constrain or restrict our policies only towards your economy. Now we'll look at poverty as a social connotation. We'll give it a political connotation and we'll give it an economic connotation. And you will beautifully see a correlation that the social and economic connotation of poverty is the fundamental reason for all the social issues. You will see that. Or the genesis of most of the social issues is out of the social connotation and economic connotation of poverty. Right? So we'll meet back at 5:10. Okay.